great to have you back. Do you remember when we last spoke? It was before the year before last, right?
That I don't remember exactly when it was. Obviously, I remember the conversation and getting to
Yeah,
hang out and everything, but it's obviously been a minute.
it's been a hot minute. So, well, actually, last time I would have had you on, I wasn't putting everything up on YouTube. So this will be fun. At least we're gonna get you up on YouTube
Some visuals.
and some yeah, some visuals and let's go through it again. Like, what do you tell me your story? What are you doing and why are you doing it and where do you live and what is happening in your life?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, like very, very pointed question there, not broad and vague at all.
No, not at all. Just
Yeah.
like you go. I'm
Yes.
chilling.
Okay, so career-wise, things haven't really changed since the
Yeah.
last time you and I were on. I still love what I get to do, which is coaching like you do, but my emphasis is much more on visual presentation, style, grooming, body language, tattoos, all that kind of stuff. And I work exclusively with men, and we get to bring out who they are on the inside and
Mm,
project that to the rest of the world or back to themselves externally through all those things. And so it's a really fun process and a
yeah.
very kind of like philosophical and psychological process as I go through this with these guys. So that's still just absolutely a blast. I love doing that. I think the last time you and I spoke, I probably had 5 kids, maybe 6, but now I'm up to 7.
Sounds
The
like a
years just
great
keep
time to
going.
have a sip of my coffee. I almost spit it out.
I
Holy
gotcha. Yeah,
seven, seven kids ranging in age from
it is literally every 2 years from 12 years old down to 9 months.
oh, so you got
And
a little
little
bambino.
baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's 6 girls and 1 boy. So my son and I are very outnumbered.
And here you are, like the guy that like is like an expert on like men's like fashion, and you have all these girls to dress.
Wild, right? Yeah. Which is really kind of fun because it just like I have one little sister, but we were 10 years apart. And so I grew
Yeah.
up mostly with brothers. And, most of my life was interacting with men and guys and all of that stuff. And so to be surrounded by a gaggle of girls has been very eye-opening in very many ways.
So men really do need to be tuning in and listening to you because I mean you clearly are full of testosterone.
We're working
Something's
on
going
it.
on with this style. It is
Something's happening.
clearly affecting the inside and outside are very connected.
Yes, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. So yeah, so love being a dad, and it's different now because the biggest change is that I unfortunately went through a divorce last year.
Hmm.
And so now being a dad is being a single dad most of the time and
Wow.
being able to
Yeah.
do that with 7 kids and having to now, and that's one of the things that I love about doing what we do is I'm grateful that I get to control my schedule. And so when
Yeah.
my kids are here, I
Yeah.
just get to be a dad and be fully present with them. And I've got clients that are understanding about that, how that works from a time perspective and everything. And so
I
it works
bet.
out really well in that regard. Yeah.
Okay. So, look, where do you live? So what is that?
I'm in like Provo, Utah, just south of Salt
Yeah.
Lake City. Yeah.
Great. Do you have a little bit of backyard then and some land for the kids to run around in, or what
Not
is
anymore. Nope.
not anymore?
She
Okay.
got she got the house, so I'm in a townhouse. I'm about half a mile away, which was very intentional. I wanted to
Be close. Yeah.
disrupt their lives as little as possible.
Yeah.
And so the older kids still have like the same friends and everything else. And I mean, for the most part, it works. One of the beauties of Utah is that even though I don't necessarily have like, I'm not on land myself, it's such easy access to everything else that there's
Yeah.
myriad outside opportunities. Yeah.
That's important for the kids. Like
Yeah.
routine can create discipline and discipline is necessary for like the achievement of pretty much anything in life.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been fun figuring that out with them because their routines are very different at their mom's house versus at mine. And when you go
Sure.
through kind of the initial establishment of those routines, there can be a lot of very justified pushback. Like, I don't envy my kids having to go through navigating, what's still the same at mom's house or dad's house when they were together, or what's different, or all those
Mm.
other things. But, we're a year in, and I'm very grateful that my kids have really embraced the routine to the point where they it doesn't even require discipline much on their part anymore. Like they're thoroughly just kind of enmeshed in it,
Hmm.
and they're now starting to see the fruits of it as opposed to just like the labors of it too, which is great.
Got it. And I'm guessing that even in this townhome, you made sure that the master bedroom had a pretty big walk-in closet. Or what's the situation there?
Yes. In fact, we're about to move. We're about to move into another one that's a bigger place because
Yeah.
right now my youngest sleeps in the closet when she's here. But it's yeah, the next one has a his and hers closet, and until I find somebody else, I'm filling both of those by myself.
Yeah, because I imagine you have, well, I'm imagining something that could be totally incorrect. Good style doesn't mean you have to have tons of clothes. It might just
No.
be how you piece things together, right?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and for most of my clients, they don't necessarily end up establishing really big wardrobes. For
Hmm.
me, I'm in the same shirts and pants most of the time, but I probably own more shoes than you do and more jackets than most people as well.
You probably
So
have me
that's
on
how
the
it works
shoes
for us.
these days, as back in my corporate days, I had a lot of high heels. And
Hmm.
now I really dress in a way that allows me to do my work, but also take my dog out. And that's why I'm literally always in active wear.
Nice. Yeah, to just get the pure functionality out of it, right?
You know what? It looks cute. No one
Hmm.
knows that it's a crop top usually, because I get guys commenting and they're like, "Oh, like really like your dress," and I'm like, "Thank you." And it's like a workout. It's a
Nice. It
workout
is
outfit.
athletic wear. I love
Yeah,
it.
it's athletic wear, but they don't know that because I try and film from like the boobs up,
Uh-huh.
and it's very functional. Because as soon as I'm done like a client call, I'm like grab the dog leash and I'm out for a walk, and that's very practical for me, my lifestyle, and like where I live and what I do.
Right.
But I do very distinctly remember when we had our first conversation, I was like, I really thought to myself, I'm like, am I dressing in a way that really like encourages like what I want to achieve in my life? And I really had to think about it because I'd gone
Good.
from being very corporate to being very West Coast relaxed. And I was like, no, no, I think I am in alignment.
Awesome. Dude, I love that I made you think.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, you really did. However, one thing that I only started nerding out on recently is color theory.
Oh, have
So this
you
is why
like
I'm
actually
wearing
gone and been
green
tested? So are
because I
you
have green eyes.
uh-huh.
So I'm
And are
like
you warm or cool? You're probably warm,
I'm a
right?
neutral because I have blue. Okay, so let's explain. We're gonna nerd out.
Okay.
Explain to the audience what the heck color theory is and what
Yes.
guys should know this, and then we'll nerd out on mine and yours.
Okay, this is fair. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I think that for most guys, this is one of those things that you need to understand at a very different level than most women,
Okay.
because this is something that you can really nerd out on, but the cost benefit for us is not the same as it is for you ladies, where the most basic way to break it down is you have warm colors and cool colors. Okay. And so for you guys that are watching, listening, the best way to understand this is warm colors are blue base, or sorry, warm colors are gold based and cool colors are blue based.
Okay.
And what you want to do is find colors that align with what your natural skin tones are, what works with kind of like your hair color, your eye color, and stuff like that. And the two reasons that this matters are one, it makes you look more vibrant, more healthy, all of
Yeah.
this good stuff. But then two, is it just eliminates so much decision fatigue because you
Oh,
can
I
find
love
brands that,
that perspective.
right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you can find brands that all they have are warm colors, or all these other brands have are cool colors, or you can walk into a store and immediately eliminate so much of the stuff that's on there, and it
Yeah.
just makes the buying process so much simpler, which
That
is a
makes
big
sense.
hurdle for a lot of guys that are starting to get into this stuff. And so you look
Ah.
better and it becomes easier. Those are good wins. Now you can go further down the rabbit hole of
Mhm.
like, are you an autumn or a spring or a winter or a summer, or like, are there jewel tones or all these other things? And I do not envy you women who have to know like the exact Pantone of
I'm a
like
soft
this
autumn.
hex color to get your foundation the right shade. Like I don't that's a whole different level you guys
Shoot,
have to
I
get
don't
to.
go that deep either, but
Good.
I do just at least go with like the season. So I'm like I'm a soft autumn.
Okay, gotcha. Yep.
There we go. I got the hold on, I got the or no, I lied. Yeah, no, I think I'm a soft autumn. But anyways, I got like the dark autumn. Can you see it? Oh, there goes my ring
Yep.
light. The
There we go.
color palette for me.
Yes. Yes. Yep, those nice warm tones. So I'm in the autumn family too. So
Yeah,
we'll just
because look,
share.
you've got like brilliantly bluey sapphire eyes, right? And
Hmm.
then
Yeah,
it's highlighting because you're in that nice denim shirt.
right. That pulls it
And
out.
then I'm trying to do the same because I've got green eyes
And it's working.
and it's working. I
Yep.
guess a lot of people are like, "What's up with like you and your skin?" And I'm like, "It's my color season."
Yep. Crazy how effective it is. And
Really, really works. Yeah.
I get that a lot of guys can feel like, okay, I don't need to focus on that. And there are things that matter much more, like as far as what's being communicated. But if you can
Yeah.
put in a little bit of effort to figure it out, then it is very much a set it and forget it type of thing, and you reap the benefits forever.
You're totally right. Once you know it, you don't have to, print out a, color palette or whatever, or like, go crazy over it. You just need to know, okay, when I'm in blue, I look healthier, I look better, and that's just going to translate into how you feel about yourself and also how people perceive you too, because there's something that I kind of do unconsciously when I see people is I'm like, does that person look like healthy and vibrant, or they're like kind of like tired and worn out? And you can
Yep,
tell that in people's face and just, how kind of just whether they're popping or they're not.
absolutely. Yep, yep.
Yeah,
And
so
we
like
all
this is great
subconsciously
for
do that.
faith. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We're all judging and we're all like, looking around. And I just put a reel out just before we got on this interview on like the first 7 seconds, guys, are so important. And what you're wearing is going to play into that, as well
Hmm.
as how you're carrying yourself before you've even said
Yes.
anything. Right. So if
Right.
you're wearing clothes that are too big for you or just are too small for you,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And that
You
means
have
you're
energy and vitality, and do you own what you're
yeah.
wearing as opposed to shrinking in it because you're self-conscious about it? Do you look like you're
Mhm.
trying to disappear, or do you look like you're
Yeah.
desperate for attention, or do you look like you're
Yeah.
comfortable with attention? And there's all of
Yeah.
that to get factored in. Yeah.
100%. And I think usually like the most attractive guy in the room is one that is dressed in a way that is authentic to him, but everything fits. There's something about like, what was it, like the early 2000s or the 90s where everything was like jumbo,
Yes. Yep.
right? And I think like
And
there's
then we
something about,
overcorrected in the
yeah.
2010s where
And
everything
then
was
we
hyper
went like,
skinny.
yeah, and I'm probably still in like the underdressing, given that I'm in a crop top. Then we went the other way to underdressing.
Yep.
Because you look at like a history of style, right? To walk me through a little bit of like, I'm just kind of nerding out on this. And you know what I'm thinking about right now? I'm thinking about like Thomas Shelby and Peaky Blinders.
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking about like how well dressed men and women used to be throughout history, and like how the modern day like suit is kind of like jeans and a t-shirt now. Like,
Right.
talk me through a little bit of where are we in terms of like the fashion era, and do you like the way we dress today, or do you kind of like the way we used to dress historically?
So this is a really good question, especially like where we are, because I think we're in a fascinating time. We're recording this on Inauguration Day, and for those of us that are terminally online, I think it's fairly apparent that we're at the beginning of a very big cultural shift,
Yeah.
and things are really about to change. And one of the things that's so interesting is if you recognize from this big kind of like macro cultural perspective, one of the reasons why people dressed so much better in previous decades or eras than we do now is because for most of the history of the West, we were either an honor culture or a dignity culture. And those were the things that both men and women really wanted to reflect. There was this kind of like mutual respect for how you showed up in public spaces, and that you recognized that that would have an impact on how people were able to interact in those spaces, and you wanted to present yourself and
Mm.
genuinely see yourself as somebody who was honorable or had this sense of like self-respect and dignity and all of that. And then with things like the sexual revolution or the technological revolution, with stuff like the advent of social media, and I would argue even like COVID really drove this home, with everybody kind of living at home for so long as opposed to being out in public spaces, we moved into more of a comfort and or victim culture.
Mm.
And for a few years, those have been a lot of the things that people have really been signaling is, I'm part of this victim hierarchy, or you get certain subcultures that are very much like signaling that I've been oppressed in this group and this is how I can manifest that. Or it's more of the kind of like jaded cynicism that a lot of Gen X and older millennials were brought up with. And so you have to dress in a way that shows your indifference to things, because
Mhm.
that's actually the uniform that you have to wear, is the uniform of indifference, which is what so much of like jeans and t-shirts and things are. And so what's going to be so fascinating to see is, are we going to see a sartorial shift in the culture the same way that we're seeing all of these other shifts? Like Kimberly, if you would have told me 5 years ago that the conversation about seed oils that a bunch of us autists on Twitter were having would have been part of like the main conversation within generalized politics, I would not have believed you, right?
Oh, right.
And so I'm curious to see the movements that we're seeing towards health, towards architecture, towards all of these other things, if we're going to see some of that when it comes to clothing and style and all of that as well. So it's going to be really interesting 4 years to see what happens.
And why do you say 4 years?
Because I think that that's where things are really going to get solidified from a whether we want it to be or not. Who is the president of the United States has such a big cultural impact, not only in the US, but just kind of
Yeah.
like on a global scale. And so
Mm,
I don't, to me, I lament that there's that much cultural power that can be wielded by one person, but
yeah.
that's the reality of the world that we're in. And so it's going to be really interesting to see what the next 4 years look like in
So
that
it's
regard.
always been like that. We've always looked up to somebody or had
Yes.
someone to look to, right? Okay,
Yes.
so just for fun, good old Donald Trump is
Yeah.
the topic of a lot of conversations. If Donald Trump was your client, what would you do to make him pop?
Man, that's such a good question because one of
Yeah,
the
let's
things that
dress
people
Donald.
don't recognize about Trump is that he's obviously very intentional with his appearance.
Yes.
He's very authentic with his appearance. So, okay, so when I teach my guys
Yeah.
about I call it extegrity. It's when who you are on the outside matches who you are on the inside.
Okay.
Okay. And when I teach them about it, there's 3 A's that we think about. The first one is it has to be authentic. And that's like the number one most important thing for guys. We will not wear stuff that does not feel authentic for us, which is why
Fair.
most guys will be in jeans and a t-shirt rather than looking better in something that feels like it's posing or try hard or fake or whatever
A
else.
Carhartt guy is just not going to put on a Prada t-shirt because it's just
Not.
inauthentic. Yeah. Okay.
Doesn't matter how aesthetic it is. It doesn't matter. And none of that matters if it's inauthentic, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair. I
So the
agree.
first
Yeah.
one is authenticity, and Trump nails that in that regard. The
Hmm.
second one is that it needs to be articulate, which is essentially you can treat clothing as kind of like a visual language. And so
Okay.
you want to use it as a way to send the signals that you want to send in a way that people will see and perceive them. And Trump very much does this with like the fake tan and the weird hair and like the bold, like go to hell power ties that are very phallic and all of that.
Red.
Like he's very
Yeah.
articulate with it, right?
Does he really wear fake tan?
I don't know, but it sure comes across that way. Like when you see the lines of where it ends with his ears and stuff like that, like there's
Yeah,
a
it's
whole reason
almost
that he's
like
the orange man. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, did someone just like like really? Is that really what's going on there? Because I mean, there's some fake tans out there that are really good.
Right. Right.
It's
And
like
I don't, and this is the thing that's so fascinating about it is to me, it almost feels like it's intentionally bad because it's such a pattern disrupt, right?
yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. And I know the hair has always got like it's always like kind of
This
peaked.
weird coif.
Oh, it's so fascinating. And okay, so
And his ties are always too long and his suits used to
yeah.
be way too big and all of this.
Mhm.
So he is very articulate in sending the signals that he wants. But the third aspect of it is aesthetic. So
Okay.
does it actually follow the general rules of like pattern and proportion and color theory and all of these things that actually just make things visually look good? And that's where
Is there
he doesn't
harmony
deliver
in
at
the
all.
outfit and
Right.
like for example, like the sandwich method, right?
Yes.
Okay, so talk to people. I know. I talk to people about like how the sandwich method, guys, super easy to do, can create harmony.
Okay, tell me. I've heard a few different things that are referred to as the sandwich method. So
Okay.
tell me what you're referencing when you use that.
The definition I understand is like if a guy is getting dressed and he just wants to be casual and he's a jeans and t-shirt kind of guy and he
Mhm.
tends to like a white t-shirt and he's got blue jeans on, then his kind of shoes should be like they don't have to be bright white, but they should be lighter. So it's like the color on top matches the color of your shoes, and then maybe it's disrupted by something in the middle. So i.e. the sandwich, two slices
Yes.
of bread with the meat in the middle kind of thing.
Right. And
So
it's kind of pulling those colors together so it looks intentional. Yes.
yeah, I think that. And I think like, okay, so and then maybe a non-white t-shirt example. Again, like if a guy is maybe wearing something darker navy, and then maybe it's like a navy t-shirt and he's got beige Bahama shorts on, then maybe he has like the navy kind of boat shoes and it kind of
Right.
is matching, right?
Right. Yep.
Because if you got the blue top and then the beige shorts and then you go in with red shoes, it's all of a sudden it's like there's too many elements being introduced.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
Okay.
unless
Is
you're
that
being very
your
intentionally
yeah.
articulate with that, then
Okay.
and then yeah, sandwich method is great. Same thing with like rule of thirds or high contrast versus low contrast. And this is all stuff that I teach my guys
So
as we
what's
go
rule
through this stuff.
of thirds?
So basically, that human proportions look better if we can be broken up into thirds rather than into halves. And so this is where a lot of like higher waisted stuff looks
Mhm.
better on most people in general because it actually follows even kind of like the golden ratio, and this ties into nerdy like Fibonacci sequence and all of this stuff. And this is all stuff that like Leonardo da Vinci was
Right.
writing about, and the Vitruvian Man was drawn to match these principles. And I even kind of hesitate to talk about this a little bit because guys just can immediately get overwhelmed. It's like I don't want to have to worry about this stuff. And
Oh, I
and the
get that.
reality is when you understand the most basic principles, it can be really simple to execute on it. But yes, these are the things that Trump misses out on. So he's
Mhm.
very authentic, he's very articulate, he's terribly not aesthetic when it comes to his clothing choices.
What do we think his height is?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Should we Google
I
it
feel
and
like I
find
should
out how
know that.
tall he is? Because I've never seen Trump wearing anything that's high-waisted, so I presume he's actually relatively tall because
Right.
I feel like high-waisted can look good on someone who's a little shorter. It
Mm-hmm.
pulls you up a little bit, whereas I have my mom in particular, and I have a really good friend. They're quite short. They if they wear like low cut and then t-shirt, again, they're like chopped in half.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because even that changes depending on like, do you have
yeah,
a long legs or a short torso or vice
yeah,
versa or whatever else? Like the proportions, all there's general principles, but then there's also
yeah.
how it applies to your build
Right,
specifically. And
because you could
yep,
have someone who's short but has a really short torso, and then they're wearing high-waisted pants, and now they look like they have really long legs and like they're just boobs if they're a
yeah,
woman, or like
and it's
it's
just kind of cartoonish almost. Yeah, yep.
yeah. Okay, so let's Google Trump's height. Let's
Okay,
see.
pull it up.
For sure this will be Donald Trump height. I want feet. Okay, are you serious? What?
What is
Give
he?
me your best guess in feet.
Man, that's a good. Okay, I would say 5'10", 5'11".
Okay, up.
Is he above 6?
Apparently, look, I'll show you. This is just 6'3".
No way.
I
Really?
I'm gonna do heights of presidents and this is Wikipedia now. Okay. The tallest US president was Abraham Lincoln at six
Okay.
feet 4 inches, while the shortest was James Madison at 5'4".
Wow.
Donald Trump, the current president, is 6 feet 3 inches.
I had no idea he was that tall.
Or according to a physical examination summary from February 2019, Wikipedia.
So
US
Barron
presidents by
being
height
8 feet
order.
tall is probably reality and not actually a meme.
Yeah. So this Wikipedia chart has US presidents by height order, and it's Abraham Lincoln, Lyndon B. Johnson, and then Donald Trump.
And then Trump, crazy.
And then it goes down the list.
Yeah.
Barack Obama, 6 foot 1.5.
See, and this is what's so fascinating because I think that if you were to just take pictures of Obama and Trump and put them next to each other, the assumption would be that Obama is taller
Yes, I
purely
would
because
say
of how
that.
he dresses and his proportions, right?
I would
Because
say that
he's
too. Yeah.
he's slimmer and he wore things that were slimmer, and so it's this visual precedent of more length, whereas
Yep.
Trump is not only bigger, but he also wears things that are bigger, and so you
Yep.
expect him to be shorter and stockier than what he
You
actually
think,
is.
right? We think
Yeah.
like tall and lean and short
Mm-hmm.
and stout or whatever. And
Right.
I'm actually quite surprised. He's
Yeah.
6'3".
I would not have guessed that. He's a big guy,
He's
man.
a big dude. I mean, I don't know. This Wikipedia, like fact
Yeah.
check all you want,
Right.
right? That's what I'm reading right here in real time. So that's interesting. Okay, let's see what his weight. Let's just for fun, because then he's 6'3", carrying what?
Yeah.
How much weight? 215.
Okay.
This is what
That even surprises me too, because he's bigger. I would expect his weight to be higher because at 6'3", with
yeah.
how much kind of extra weight he carries, I'm surprised that he's that light.
The president's height was listed at 6'3" and his weight at 215. This is a Washington Post article, August 24th, 2023. So,
Okay.
that's a little
Fairly
outdated.
recently. Yeah.
Could be heavier now. Well, that's 2 years ago, right?
Right. But it's
240
not like we've
pounds.
seen big changes in him. You know, it's not
240
like he's looking more
pounds here.
gaunt.
There we go.
Interesting.
He's a little heavier now. Fascinating. Okay. So, and let's look at his most like famous outfit because this is just fun. I feel like it's fun to just, oh, it's like a appropriate for today, right?
Yes.
Basically in still kind of wears that like
Bright red tie.
still kind of why can't I just want to get this without, he still kind of wears like the bigger
Yep.
suit jacket,
Yep.
right? And then he still is wearing like the suit pants that I would more associate with like 20 years ago, like the bigger pant
Right.
legs and the bigger pant jacket is reminiscent of like, like 20 years ago. Like my
Yeah.
dad wore suits that were like flowing. And
It's
now,
very mid 90s, early 2000s.
yeah,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so
Yeah.
would we slim him down to make him look as like taller? What do you think?
So I don't know if I would necessarily go slim, slim, because that was a hard trend during the 2010s that's already started to make its way out.
Hmm.
And drape is definitely something that's being embraced. And with his proportions being what they are, drape is something that's going to matter a lot. But what I would focus on would be things like the shoulders of his suits tend to be bigger than his actual shoulders are. The sleeve lengths are too long. The pants, both in the rise, which is kind of like where the crotch area is, are too long. And so it would just be tightening up the fit on all of those things.
Want to bring it up because it's like, yeah, it's
Right?
like big,
Yes. Like
big
he
suit, big
still looks like
everything.
he's being hidden or being smothered by his
Yeah,
suit as
yeah.
opposed to it hanging off of him naturally. I think the other thing that I would do if I were him or if I were working with him would be to find ways to incorporate more texture and more seasonal suiting
Okay.
because it's a little bit more of his kind of like Americana almost nods to some of these other elements as opposed to everything always being like high twist, high sheen, and all of that as well. And
Yeah.
so that would be
Like
a fun
I
area to explore.
feel like when I think of President Donald Trump, I think of one outfit. Like always.
Totally.
I
Yeah,
feel
and
like what
that's
have
by
we ever
design. He
seen?
has a uniform.
Yeah, he has a uniform. I'm like, what else has he ever worn? I'm like,
It's
can
that or his golf outfits.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, can I
Yeah,
picture him in a turtleneck? No. Can I picture him in like workout clothes? I'm like, no. I'm like, I don't even know what his legs look like. Has
right.
anyone seen his legs?
Exactly.
Does
No,
he have
because
real
even when
legs?
he's golfing, he's in chinos. Yeah,
Yeah. Does anyone know what his legs look like?
that's a great question. I don't know that
Drop a
I've ever
comment
seen
if you've ever seen a photo of
send
his
us pictures.
legs. And do they
Yeah,
match the skin on his face? Is he tanning his legs too? I am super curious. Right? Like this
I
is fun.
love it.
When you think about it, it's like one dimension. Now, someone else that is just popular to complete cross-reference would be Jordan Peterson,
Uh huh.
who dresses now very following your 3As, very authentic in a way because he's getting these custom suits made that are like representative of the stories he tell.
Right.
Right? It's very, what was it, your second A? So authentic,
Articulate.
articulate. It's very particular, right?
Hmm.
And very,
Sends the signals he wants to send.
yeah, yeah. And you said the third one is
Aesthetic.
aesthetic, and very aesthetic too, because he'll match his socks with his everything, right?
Yep.
Got
Yeah.
all like custom labels on the inside. So we wouldn't take Donald Trump and dress him like Jordan Peterson.
Nope. Nope.
But there's like those are like kind of the two extremes. Like one outfit all the time, a little bit like baggy, and then like very deliberate. Where would
Yes.
we where would be the middle ground? It's kind of fun.
Yeah. And that's what's fun is that it's all going to be relative because I would argue that with Trump, all we would need to do is improve the uniform, but still focus on the idea of a uniform
Okay.
because there is a Trump brand
Hmm.
that you want that to be consistent. Whereas with
Yeah.
Peterson, even the consistency, this is, I guess, a little bit oxymoronic, but like he's consistently fluid and that comes across in his clothing as well that there's this
Yeah.
adaptability or this fluidity and things like that. And so this is one of the things that's so fun to work through with my guys as I work with them on an individual level is for some guys a very limited personal uniform is what's going to be the most energizing and feel the most authentic, and for others that can feel very suffocating and they want more options to be able to play with and tweak. And there's not a good or a bad or a right or a wrong. It's just what's going to be best for the individual man and what his closet looks like.
Yeah, fair enough. And like what you're doing on a day-to-day basis too, because like some men
Totally.
might enjoy and want to express themselves in style, but from a day-to-day aspect, it's really not practical because their job is such that they need to be in something that's,
Yeah,
you know,
if you're in
more workwear.
scrubs or you're a construction worker or something else, like it's hard to find the same application as somebody who's in a more white collar or a personal brand online kind of environment or something else that way. Yeah.
Top three mistakes men make dressing themselves.
Okay. Um, I would say the first one is that they tend to focus on formality, pattern, and color as the like levers that they feel like they need to pull in order to dress better. And more often than not, you don't need to dress more formally or introduce more color or more pattern. You just need to wear better versions with like fit and cloth material quality and texture and stuff like that of what you're currently wearing. So it's focus on the wrong things.
Okay.
The second one is outsourcing their clothing choices to the women in their lives. And I'll tell you why. Because what men and women, obviously, we're very different in very many regards, and our aesthetic goals are very different as well. And it's so easy for me to see, especially guys who are like 40 plus when they're dressed by their wives, because they end up being too trendy and looking too young. And for
Mm,
men, youth is a liability. For women, if we're just talking like pure sexual marketplace and being as like raw about it as possible,
other way, right? Yeah.
right? For women, youth and that kind of like vitality and innocence and trendiness and everything is an asset. And for men, that's a liability because you're untested, you're unproven, you don't have any of this that's going for you. Whereas
100%
maturity,
agree.
wisdom, all of that, right?
Be an attractive 50-year-old woman that's like got long hair, youth, and is wearing a flowy like summer dress, you're like, she's got
Yeah,
this
she's
real
still
good
got
job,
it. She's doing
right?
great. Yeah.
50-year-old divorced dude who's like kind of wearing like his white Vans sneakers and his like Quicksilver shorts and his you know, white t-shirt. You're kind of like,
Dude, we all know you're 18. You're not 18. Quit pretending.
what's going on here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the studies show that, and hell, I don't know, I can't remember the study right now, but typically men look quite attractive when they're older.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys rock like gray hair. It's cultural too, right? Because there's some
Totally.
gorgeous women that are like gray or whatever, but men just like look like they know what's up when
Yeah.
they're a little older.
Because it is it's visual signals of
Yeah.
credibility and status and authority, and even on like the most fundamental, that you've survived long enough to get gray is attractive in men. It's very
Yeah.
different. We're attracted to and by different things, and you need to use your visual appearance as a way to understand and correlate with that. And so when you outsource your clothing decisions to the women in your life, they're going to dress you to their goals, and it undermines
Mhm.
what your visual goals are. Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah, I can totally see that. I'm thinking of my parents because my mom buys my dad's stuff. Like he wouldn't really shop. He doesn't really care. He
Mm-hmm.
would just wear like whatever. And I'm thinking like the stuff that she's picking up is always with this idea of like keeping him young, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's hard because you want to have a good balance of it. I love a quote from Thomas Jefferson where he says, you know, in matters of principle, stand firm like a rock, but in matters of fashion, swim with the current. Because this actually ties into, I would say, the third mistake that most guys make is that most guys, because we have so much of a correlation between our identity and how we dress, most guys will like pick a style whenever they're at the peak of their sense of selves, which is usually sometime around like college or when they first get married or something else. Like that is when they're most assured in who they are. And then they wear that uniform for the rest of their lives. And so
Oh
what it
my
looks
God.
like is, right?
Yeah. I've never heard it put that way, but like I can really see that. It's like
Yes.
you're right. They felt good when they made that decision and therefore like
They're
it's
just riding it.
they're riding that wave
Yep.
and maybe 20 years has gone by.
Right. And I'm sorry for the Gen X guys, but baggy shorts that go past your knees or the goatee that you wear very much makes you look like you wish that it were still 1999 because that was when you hit your peak and you're kind of in denial of the fact that the world has moved on without you.
Yeah, my poor boyfriend, 'cause I'm thinking of him right now and I'm
I'm
like,
throwing him under the bus.
no, not totally. Like I find him like the most handsome man in the entire universe. And like he has this like kind of like grew up in Salt Spring Island, West Coast
Hmm.
laid back style, but also has like German heritage. So then, like, I mean, the Germans, they dress
Hmm.
particularly deliberately and very well. And you look at all of history in World War II. I mean, their uniforms and all that designed by Hugo Boss, and they're
Right.
they're minted. So he's
Very
got this like,
precise.
yeah, he's got this like, I just want to be relaxed and cozy because my life is West Coast style based, but then there's also this like military, like precise fashion. So he's always kind of bridging the two. But when I met him, he wore the same thing like every time I saw him. Gray
Hmm.
jeans, gray t-shirt. And like that was it. He had admitted he had like I have 12 of the same gray t-shirts and four of the same gray jeans.
Yep. Yep. And
And that was
even
like,
that is
yeah.
fine if you're just aware of kind of like what's going on. And it doesn't mean that guys that are in their, 30s, 40s, 50s need to dress like they're Gen Z and go hyper baggy or stuff like that. Because again, we don't want to signal that kind of youthfulness, but you want to signal to yourself because you don't want to see a guy in the mirror that hasn't changed in 20 years because it reinforces this stagnancy or this fear of growth or this other thing. And
Wait,
so you want to signal
that's
to
like, hold
yourself.
on. Say that again. I think that was really like poignant. I think that was really important.
And okay, and I'll hit on this a little bit harder because most guys make the mistake. In fact, I would even introduce this as probably the biggest, to your question of the three. Most guys make the mistake of thinking that the only reason to care about your style is because of how other people perceive you. But the biggest perception that your style affects is your own self perception. And so, if the guy that you have looking back at you in the mirror is somebody who peaked 30 years ago, or is somebody who dresses in a way that's so small that he's trying to avoid attention because he doesn't want any expectations, or it's somebody who is so flamboyant because he's terrified of what's going to happen if he's not the center of attention, like you reinforce your identity or you change your identity based on what you're choosing to put on your body and then what you see in the mirror, on social media, on your dating app profile pictures, on all of these other things. And so your clothing is much more powerful of a tool of like self shaping and self perception than it is purely a tool of communication with the other people around you.
Maybe that explains why, since going through my health issues last year, I am tending towards more athletic wear because maybe there's like the subconscious reinforcement of I'm
Oh,
healthy, I'm healthy.
yeah.
Like I'm going really deep there and like really looking inwards and going, I do notice I changed a little bit in terms of what I wear. And I was telling myself it's like when we first started this conversation, I was like, oh, I'm dressing in a way that's like representative of like getting out and walking the dog, which is true. But then there's a part of me that's like,
I'm
I'm
healthy.
reinforcing like I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I would
Because
be surprised if that were the case at all. At all.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I wonder who's listening to this video is going like, when is the last time you changed your style?
Hmm. Right?
Right? And
Yeah.
what might have actually provoked that? Was
Yeah.
it a divorce? Was it feedback from someone? Was it a change in job? Like, when do we usually change our style? Because I think it probably has to do with like a cataclysm or like a change in life that makes you then change your style, moving to a different country. I used to dress very differently in Australia than I wear
Yep.
here with Four Seasons, clearly. Way more into coats and boots. Those didn't exist there. But I'm wondering, like, unless we consciously choose to look at our style and make a choice, life probably makes it for us a little bit.
You're I love that you're just organically so spot on with that
Yeah.
because I've been doing this for more than a decade. It's been my full-time job for 8 years, and I will tell you that 85% of my clients are guys that are going through some sort of a big identity shift.
Hmm.
It's moving, it's divorce, it's I
Yeah.
just lost 100 pounds and I feel like a totally different person, or I've put on 30 pounds of muscle. Whatever it is, it's when who you see in the mirror is no longer an accurate reflection of what your self perception is. And they finally go, okay, I need to change something about myself right now on the outside. Yeah. So you're spot on.
Interesting. And I'm having that realization myself. I always knew that my outfits and people around me's outfits would change seasonally. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also coinciding with a change in your weight, a change in even your mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's an external influence that's causing you to change your style versus you just saying, where am I in my life right now? What do I value? And what does future me need from me today? And
Yes,
maybe future me needs me to dress more smart so that I take more risks. Or maybe future me needs me to put athlete gear on so I can get my ass out and walk, right?
absolutely.
Like
Yep.
maybe that's what I'm needing.
Yeah.
So interesting. So okay, so for a common scenario that we probably both deal with, men dating after divorce or
Yeah.
men getting style upgrades after divorce, what's something they might want to think about or focus on?
So I would say that the biggest thing that you can focus on is, and I'm working through this myself after, obviously having just recently gone through a divorce,
Yeah.
is not, let's see, how do I put this? I think the best thing that you can see in the mirror is noble resilience, where it's not that you're in denial about the fact that you've been dealt a heavy blow. It's not this kind of like youthful ignorance or this kind of like pouty, I'm going to get back up and I'm having a glow up to get even with my ex or anything else like that. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of emotional immaturity that comes through that way, but it's also not leaning into and identifying with being a victim, regardless of how bad the divorce was or the circumstances are coming out of it or anything else like that. The visual image that I've always had as that I've had as I've gone through this is like a big, beautiful oak tree that's got a third of it that was struck by lightning and is kind of like dead. And it's like, okay, it's not the ideal anymore, but it's not, the whole tree isn't dead. There's still growth, there's still beauty, there's still potential that comes from that. And if that's the kind of thing that you can create and curate so that that's what you have in yourself, again, in your grooming, in your posture, in your physique, in your
Mm,
clothing, and that's what you see as you leave the house every day, or that's what you feel you represent when you post up pictures for your dating profile and everything else like that, then you're going to go into your post divorce life with so much more confidence and assuredness without being in denial of the reality of your circumstances, too.
right. Okay. Top three items every man needs in his wardrobe.
It's
A
too
man
subjective.
who, a man who, for sake of the environmental, cultural, weather argument, lives somewhere where the seasons change.
Okay. Fair.
Okay, because
Fair.
it would be very different. Top three items a guy living in Sydney, Australia is going to need
Right.
a guy living in the West Coast or East Coast of the United States, Canada, right? Like you're going to need a coat, clearly.
Yes. Yes. So it's funny that you asked this because it's so subjective. Because I really would make the argument that culturally where we are, if they fit well and they're made of good quality materials and stuff like that, like a decent pair of dark jeans and a heavyweight white t-shirt can be fantastic for every single guy. And then you throw those on with a good pair of shoes that aren't like gym shoes. They can be vintage sneakers, or it could be a good pair of boots, or it could be a good pair of loafers, or something else like that. And so I think a top three item is a little bit too, it's kind of like asking a speech writer, like, what are the top three words that everybody should say in a speech? It depends on what you
Fair.
want to communicate with it,
Okay.
right? But
Yeah.
it's more about knowing what the message is you want to communicate. And
Sounds
we
more
are
like
not in a suit and tie world
top three
anymore.
considerations then. It sounds more like
Yes.
quality, material,
Yep.
fit, and,
Fit.
you know.
And I would say that authenticity aspect of it. Do you
Yeah.
feel energized by what you're wearing, or do you feel neutral or drained by what you're wearing?
Also, I say like from a female perspective, like accessibility in terms of like I have bought so many dresses over the years that I was like, wow, it looks amazing. And then I realized I can't move my arms because like it's
Right?
like it keeps my arms down. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I feel panicky at some point in the evening because I
Yes.
don't have mobility.
Yes, right? And that I
Like,
would I would put that in as like it's an energy drain because you now
yeah, it's an
feel
energy.
suffocated by wearing this and
Yeah.
it becomes a distraction as opposed to an enhancer. Yeah.
Like any material that itches or something that's clipped on or falls off your shoulder or something, you're
Right.
spending so much energy fixing that bit that keeps falling down or that itch or from the tag that keeps
Yeah.
bothering you. It's taking you away from the present moment, even
Yeah.
little tiny things like that, right?
And
Uh,
that's what's so funny is I think a lot of guys miss that most things with clothing are not presence neutral. And it's very easy to focus on avoiding those presence negatives, but you wear what you wear to the gym because it makes you feel more present in that environment. You wear what you, okay, we just saw, I just tweeted about this morning because there was a picture of Donald Trump, Joe Rogan, and Dana White all at the ball last night, all wearing tuxedos. And it's fun because they all look great in them. And when do you ever see Joe Rogan in a tux, right?
Yeah, not
But
often. Yeah.
but if Rogan were to show up in jeans and a t-shirt at the ball, he's not going to be nearly as present. He's going to be distracted by what he's wearing as he would be if he were actually dressed in a way that's appropriate. And so when you find opportunities to treat your clothing as this like vehicle for more presence,
Hmm.
then that's when it can become a big asset to you as well. Yeah.
Better to be overdressed or underdressed? Instinct answer.
Mm, from a formality perspective, it used to be in the 20th century that it's better to be overdressed, but we now no longer measure authority or dignity by formality,
Hmm. Well,
right?
I was just out for dinner like the other night, my partner and another couple, and I wasn't sure it was a new restaurant we were going to, and I didn't really like research it or look it up. And so I put on like a really nice dress and was like dressed up. And then when we
Mm-hmm.
got there, it was like the best restaurant, by the way. It's called Nom Pen. It's
Mm-hmm.
Cambodian and some Vietnamese cuisine, like the most delicious food, but like bright cafeteria lights. And I'm sitting there like looking around and people are in their like sweatpants and really, really
Mm-hmm.
casual. And I'm like fully dolled up. And I was like,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
felt a
Yeah.
little overdressed. But you know what? I said to myself, my partner was like, better to be overdressed than underdressed. You look great. And I was like, you know what? Thank you. I'm
You
like,
know
I
what? I like that. I like that idea because I would say it's better if we go back to the 3 A's, if and most of the time more formal clothing is more aesthetic than more casual clothing. And
I
so I would say better to be overdressed because it introduces more beauty and more aesthetics back into a world that needs it more. So yes,
also, I'm more aware of my posture when I'm better dressed
right?
than when I am in other clothes. So if
Yep.
I am in a big baggy sweater, I know that like my stomach can hang out or whatever. But like if I'm in a nice dress, like I am sitting like a lady.
Yep. Yep.
Right?
Because again,
So
it makes
yeah,
you, it
yeah,
feeds like your whole mindset about what you're doing. It's not an individual variable. Yeah.
totally. Okay, so thoughts on men and hats? Because I'm just curious about this myself.
Ooh, okay. So, I think
I
one
feel like
thing that most, oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. I was gonna say, like, everybody's got a baseball cap, but what about all the other types of hats? And are some of them just like really outdated now, like the fedora, for example?
Yes. Okay. So the first thing that I would say is that you're better off staying with baseball caps and recognizing that there are like 10 different iterations of what the baseball cap is, and you
Yeah.
can find ways to be able to make it work irrespective of your style. Some of my favorite stylish guys, there's this Spanish guy, his name's JM Licor. You guys can find him on Instagram, and he does really, really cool, like vintage ball caps with suiting and stuff, and it works for him,
And
and
it
so
works.
like you can run the whole spectrum with this. And so understand that there's a whole like range of different baseball caps to play with.
Yeah.
And then the next thing to recognize is that anything beyond that is incredibly difficult to pull off
Quite a
because
statement, isn't it?
it gets into costume territory relatively quickly where a fedora is almost so far socially removed that it's kind of like the equivalent of wearing like George Washington's tri-corner hat or Napoleon's like big cap, general's cap or things like that, or a top hat.
I
Like,
would tend to agree with you, but I
right?
mean, yeah, like I've seen my partner likes to rock a hat. He
Okay.
does. He likes the flat cap, Peaky Blinder
Oh,
stuff.
uh-huh. Yeah.
But I tend to find that it works for him when it's like fall or winter and he's got like a big turtleneck on and it's got a vibe.
Because it's all that traditional workwear components that correlate with it.
Yeah, and
Yes.
he genuinely like looks like a fisherman kind of thing. Like that's
Right.
the vibe. And I'm like, you're owning it, you're wearing it, and you're rocking it. But it's such a fine line. Like I feel like women get away with a lot of different. I have floppy hat. I love hats. I
Totally.
love wearing them all the time. But for some reason, I feel like it's harder for guys.
I'm gonna keep talking. I'm gonna grab one and I'll show you. But
Okay, yeah, bring them out.
So, so for the guys who are a little bit more, I think especially like West Coast, and you have a little bit more of that kind of like rugged in you,
Yeah.
there's ways to pull off something that's a little bit more of like a Western style hat.
Yeah.
But
See, I like that. I have one
thank
like
you,
that. Yeah.
right? But it still is what? It still is a bit of a challenge where you have to be kind of nailing everything else with your style and you have to be in the right environments. Otherwise, it becomes a costume and cartoonish. And so
I feel
it's
like, right?
doable,
It's really
but
hard for a guy to wear like a hat like that out to a dinner because you're not going to keep it on when you're eating. And then where are you
right.
going to put it? And then you basically just took it with you to not wear it to then take it home.
Exactly. Right. And this is
Yeah.
the thing is that most guys, most of our stuff has to be rooted in function in order for us to be able to feel authentic in how we wear it.
Yeah.
And car culture killed hat culture because we go from climate controlled box to climate controlled box to climate controlled box.
Right.
And you really don't need to wear hats the way that our ancestors wore because every culture has developed their own very fascinating masculine hats because people were outside all the time and you needed them for sun
Yeah.
protection and rain protection and all of that. And that's just not the world that we largely live in now. And so, because it's been robbed of its function, it
Yeah.
feels like a costume. And so, it's harder to pull off in an authentic way.
So let's do something fun. I'm going to grab three of my favorite hats and you
Okay.
tell me which one you like the best because this
Okay.
is
Great.
fun.
Let's do this.
I got three faves here.
Okay.
Okay.
How often are you wearing these? Like, is this a standard rotation or is this kind of like an every once in a while type of thing that you have these on?
My style. It's just like I like to play around with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to play. Okay. Okay. Hat number one.
Okay. Yeah. I already love this,
Love
especially
this
because of the
hat.
green, right? Yep.
Totally matches. Brick
Yeah.
stick.
That's great.
Okay. Okay. What do we rate this out of 10?
Uh, what are we wearing it with?
Usually, if I'm wearing a hat like this, I would either pair it with like a summer dress, kind of a
Ooh.
la Beth Dutton
Okay.
Yellowstone,
Mm-hmm.
or I am wearing like white t-shirt, jean shorts, flip-flops.
Gotcha. It's a little bit more kind of rugged and playing with stuff that way.
I'm thinking, yeah.
Okay. That's tens for both of those. That works. Yep.
I'll leave the funny one for last. Okay. I just had a trip to England and Scotland, and my partner and I and our good friends went clay pigeon shooting.
Oh,
And
fun.
we were in England. So I got the traditional
Nice.
flat cap.
Okay. How
So
does the brim separate from the cap itself?
it actually does by a little
Oh,
clip,
okay.
but you
Gotcha.
wouldn't wear it like this because now I'm a
No.
trained conductor.
Right. Yeah, that
So it's
gets a little
always
too
flat.
cartoonish on
And
me.
I'm wearing this with a matching barber shooting jacket
Okay.
and like tight jeans and brown boots or something.
Yes. What's it made out of?
No, it's a traditional cap. Barber wax flat cap, 100% cotton, lining
Awesome.
100%
So it's
cotton.
not even a synthetic. Man, you were two
No,
for
God.
two on these. This is great.
Okay, no, this was, yeah, not cheap.
Yeah.
Probably my partner bought me this hat.
Okay. Okay, when are you in this?
I'm in this, like, especially like the first 3 years of us dating, every weekend we would just be in his Toyota truck going somewhere. He was teaching me how to shoot. I'd be shooting a recurve bow. We'd be out in the bush going for hikes. And he loves me in camo.
How is it still that pristine?
Well, because this one's new and I have like seven others that are more
Okay.
down.
So that's the only thing that I would say makes that one a miss is something that's that authentic needs to have
It
some
needs
like
to be,
wear and tear and be broken in. Yeah.
this one's pretty new.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. But this is like me and my Canada Goose green parka with fur
Uh-huh.
and like my black tights and my combat boots.
Yep. Once
This
that
is
gets some reps in on that, that'll be great.
this is more Kimberly than anything else, believe it or not.
I love that because
Yeah.
obviously we've been following each other on social for years. I've never seen this side of you.
Nobody knows. Like, and I find it
Why don't you
fascinating.
show that?
I don't know. People give me suggestions and idea. I don't really know how to weave my personal life into what I do. My
That's
clients get
fair.
to know me. I'm not interested in being like, hey guys, like this is what I'm doing this weekend. Like,
Right.
I
Because you're
don't,
not the brand the same way that it is for a lot of other people. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
But
that makes
every
sense.
now and then a story goes up of like what I'm doing, but I don't know how to weave that into like the content that I produce. Honestly, I don't know, and I don't think people care, and I
Yeah.
don't want to spend the time on it.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, it's fun to get to see that side of you.
Yeah. Okay. So this I bought, haven't worn yet because I'm like, okay, it's winter. I really want to get up to the ski hill and I want to look really cute. So,
You're going all snow bunny. Let's see this.
oh, it's
Okay. Okay. So, will you be
leather.
skiing in this?
What?
Will you be skiing in this?
Well, I at least want to après in this.
How good of a
I'm
skier are
thinking
you?
like a one-piece black ski suit, matching gloves, and this hat. Like I'm
How,
probably more like Russian escort here.
how good of a ski how good of a skier are you?
I am not that good. So I have like two amazing 80s style retro one-piece ski suits
Okay.
that look banging, but literally on the ski hill, I haven't skied in like 5 years. Okay. So
Okay.
the last time I was up there, I had like 10 people stop me on the mountain and they're like, oh my God, do you ski as good as your suit? I went, no, this is just so people can find me. So this
There
is
you
the
go.
hat
That's a
as
good
well.
answer.
This
Yes.
is oh my God, this is just so people can find me. They know to look for Kim in like the bright yellow thing or like the retro ski suit. By the way, they're all from a company called tipsyelves.com. They have like hilarious ski
How could
suits.
they not with a name like that?
So then I was like, I like this one. I don't know. I feel like Russian in it, I guess. Yeah.
See,
What do
this is
we
unfair because I feel like okay, Kim, you set me up here because all of these are wins. And then I just
Okay.
look like I'm simping by telling you that they're all wins. You had to actually choose a bad one that I could call you out on.
I have a lot more. So like I just grabbed like four quick ones.
No, these are great. All four of these are really good options. Yeah.
This one was just from Zara. It was like a quick I went in there and I was like, I don't even know if it's real leather, but
No, it won't be.
definitely not real fur. But I was like, it's so warm.
Yep.
And you know what? I just like being different from other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope.
I
Those are all
don't
wins.
want to have the same thing on that everyone else has. That's part of my identity, or maybe it's driven by my ego of just wanting something a little different.
Do you find that there are ever any circumstances where that's not the case, or are you always more inclined to stand out?
Mm, I never was. I grew up in Vancouver, and my idea of a going out outfit was jeans and a cute top.
Okay.
And I would wear like black leggings that I would have found on sale at like Home Sense to go out for a night out with like high heel shoes. None of it made sense. And I had no sense of style or fashion. I also didn't know who I was. And I had the bleach blonde hair and I was very insecure. Then I left and I booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok, Thailand with my friend
Okay.
Melissa, and we were planning to travel for 2 months, and it turned into 10 years of me living away. And I ended up in Sydney, Australia, and I met a bunch of English girls from Liverpool, and they were bright colors, fashionistas, and we all would start going out together, and they'd look at me and be like, you can't wear that. You can't wear the same shit." So they
Right.
started dressing me in their clothes. First time I ever wore a bright orange shift dress or a Camilla play suit. I didn't even know what a play suit was with rhinestones all over it. And they just got me totally expressing
That's a
myself through
huge
clothes.
push. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went from like the same thing all the time to loving and exploring materials and fashion. And then when I came back to Vancouver, I realized fashion here is awful.
Hmm.
Number one, it's not like Toronto. It's very like it's 10 years behind everyone.
Hmm.
And there was still that Australian identity that I had of that fashion that I am trying to bring into Vancouver appropriately. So I want to feel like I did in Australia where I'm wearing something colorful, but I'm
Right.
trying to make it appropriate to Vancouver.
It's the
So
tug of authentic and articulate, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I tend to, my partner's like, you look great. Let's just go. And I'm like, I just, what about it? And he's like, you look fine. I'm like, but this hat, but he's like,
Right.
doesn't matter. It matters to me.
Yep. I totally get that. Yeah. And that's a real challenge where it's because you are more than just the BC version of you,
Mhm.
right? And you've lived more and you've done more and you kind of like interact with the world in a different way. And so, how do you bring elements of all of that into the current tribes that you belong to and place that you live and all of that in a way
Mhm.
that still, and so that makes sense that there's this kind
Yeah.
of enjoyment in standing out, especially because for you it's like an out and then
Yeah.
back, and so you don't want to go back to the old version of yourself, right?
Totally. And
Yeah.
that's why, like, I'm not in Lululemon. I'm in a different brand because I
Right.
don't want to wear the same thing
Even
everybody.
if it's just that little subtle of a shift that it's the brand difference, that
They're
makes
like, where do
sense.
you get these scallop tops? I'm like, a Facebook
Uh-huh.
ad, guys, a Facebook ad. They knew the algorithm.
The algorithm's good.
They got me. Like I
Yep.
saw the same ad for this brand 10 times and then I was like, okay, I bought like all their stuff.
Yep. That's this shirt that I've got on was from the algorithm getting me. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it knows.
good
It
at
knows.
what they do.
So, okay, so for bringing it back, 'cause I've been having fun talking about myself here for a little bit, which I really enjoyed, to be honest. But
Good.
bringing it back to men watching this show, we were talking about the three things they kind of need, and that was hard to answer. It's more about, what fits them, what feels good, and not
Mhm.
being, distracted by things that, don't work well. Um, And then I guess the authentic part is like what we were talking about, pulling in those things that they like, that make them feel unique and feel good about themselves. And
Right.
let's talk about something too, just for a minute. I know we're getting out of time here, but it's fun chatting with you. Undergarments for men. Like
Yeah.
guys probably don't think about this, but underwear, like are we all wearing sacks nowadays? Or is there a market for like different material for guys? Does it matter? Like
So this is where I venture a little bit out of style guy into health
yeah.
nut. And I recommend that guys do no synthetic materials and don't wear stuff that's like constricting the boys
Yeah.
so that we don't get all of the endocrine disruptors and also all of the like blood flow issues and stuff like that. So if you can just do 100% cotton boxers, that's the way to do it.
Way to do it. And also, like, if you're gonna throw them in the dryer, don't be putting those
The
dryer
dryer sheets.
sheets in
Yep.
there because they're
Yep.
just hormone disruptors too and stuff.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've
Yeah, we're
learned
on the
that.
same page there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, we go through a lot of health things and then we start to really recognize we can't
This
be
stuff
making
matters.
stuff matters. Like I
Yeah.
know I'm a little bit like going down the rabbit hole too. Like I'm castor oil on my face, like I'm vitamin
Nice.
D up every day. Like
You
I
doing
put
red
my
light therapy yet?
Yeah, I have the Luminex red light therapy
Mm-hmm.
face mask I do for my skin. I also just bought this device called a NeuroSim, and it attaches to your ear and it helps stimulate your nervous system and your vagal nerve to reduce
Will
anxiety.
you send me that link after we're done recording this? I
Yeah,
would love to see that.
100%. I'm still in the trial, but you use it twice a day. And actually, like, I'll totally show it because this is something that could help so many people. And I'm sleeping better and I'm way calmer.
That's super fascinating because I am
Is it
like always in fight or flight mode. And so something that can help bring that down would be very helpful.
right? So I'm not going to pretend I know how to describe everything here, but this is the device that attaches to my ear here. And then
Hmm.
it has a little bendy cord so it goes around. So now it's just sitting nicely in my ear and it's got the remote control. And once I power it on, I set the time 30 minutes. It's got on screen here.
Awesome.
And then what happens is I don't even know what the setting goes up to, but in terms of the current that's running through it, I can go up. Usually I can sit around about 15, 16, and then I start to feel like the tiniest tingle.
Hmm.
Whereas my girlfriend, I let her try it. She felt a tingle on like two, and then
Oh,
her partner
interesting.
tried it and he couldn't feel it. He was going up to 30. So we're all different sensitivity.
Yeah.
And then you set it and you just let it do its thing. You don't feel anything, but it's putting obviously a current through your vagal nerve and stimulating your system.
I
And
want
it's
I want
one
one of
of,
these.
yeah, NeuroSim. NeuroSym.
Okay.
NeuroSim comes in this great case, $1,000.
Cool.
That's Canadian. Twice a day I use it. I'm a lot more resilient with stress these days. And whether that's
Fantastic.
a placebo or not, I don't know.
Doesn't
But
matter. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I will game all the placebos I need to get to where I want to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in terms of like where I'm at with health, guys, especially going through cancer, that a lot of you guys watching this know that I went through it or know vaguely, right? When it comes to health, it's like I'm so zoned in on that stuff now. Like
Yeah.
right before we got on this podcast, I just ordered a bunch more vitamin D. That thing saved my life.
Yeah, mega dosing on that.
50,000 international units.
Atta girl. Yep.
Yeah, you're
Yep.
on the boat. You're on the same, we're on the same boat. I love it. That stuff saved me through cancer treatment, right? Kept my immune system high. I remember going into
Awesome.
the hospital and the surgeon checked my vitamin D level. And this was after my 6 weeks of treatment and chemo and everything that just kills your system. The surgeon looked at me and went, "You have some of the best vitamin D levels I've ever seen for someone that's gone through this." And she just looked me in the eye. She said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing what you're doing."
Fantastic.
And I was like, "Yep. Yeah,
Such a win.
I have to buy this stuff under the counter here in Canada because they don't sell vitamin D in that high of dosing here.
Oh, interesting. You won't get it. I got mine off the TikTok shop like 6 months ago because the
Dude,
algorithm there got me.
now I buy the just bought the stuff right before from Dr. Berg and just got his vitamin D 10,000 international units, but he also mixes it with the K2, which you need
Yep.
for absorption into your bone. And then because vitamin D high doses can deplete you with zinc and magnesium, he puts that in his supplement as well.
Oh, cool.
So it's all one formula to make sure that you're not getting depleted because
Right.
that's what vitamin D does. It can deplete you of the other things, which is why they say, oh, like be careful. It's like you don't really need to be careful. You
No,
just
you
need
just
to
know what you're doing and supplement the other way. Yeah.
yeah. Oh man, we can talk about this all day, but
Oh, yeah.
okay, as we wrap up because we're at an hour 15 here, piece of advice for guys wanting to just take that first step, that first foray into just considering what they're wearing.
I would say that the biggest thing that you can do is come into it with the attitude of, and I get why most guys feel this way, because if you've had somebody else try to dress you before, or you've hired a stylist or something else, you've probably been told that things look great. And then you go back to wearing what you wore before because it feels more authentic to be in what you were in. And so it's very easy to create this false dichotomy of either I can feel like myself or I can look good, but I can't have both.
Mm,
And if you can open up your mindset a little bit more to the understanding that rather than there being this kind of like mutual exclusivity between those two, there's actually a symbiosis between them when it happens the right way. And the best thing that my clients get out of working with me, yeah, they end up looking good, but they end up feeling even more like themselves than they
mm.
were before. And so you get more authenticity than you currently are experiencing with what you're currently wearing. It just has to be tackled the right way. And so if you can be open to that idea, whether that's working with me or, somebody else or experimenting with it on your own, whatever, but if you can shift your mindset into, I will actually feel more authentic and more like myself by going into this, then that's something I have to sacrifice. That's when things really get fun and effective with your appearance.
I love it. Okay, cool. Well, I'll be having all the links for you in the show notes here. And obviously, I just had so much fun jamming out
Yeah,
with you.
this is fun.
I feel like we could go down a health rabbit hole right now, but we won't
Yes.
for the sake of everybody. But
On a
thank you so
different
much.
level.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you guys all for tuning in and watching this week's episode. And of course, look forward to having you all again next week.